It's recording now, so I guess without further ado, let me hand over the sesh to Jo, our instructor. Thanks, Jo.
It's not really instructor. I'm still learning about it, just like you guys. So I'm probably a few weeks ahead of many of you. So yeah. So it's all good. I'm still learning. So it's enjoy uh helping people kind of learn with me also. Maybe a little bit of a review of what we did last week. We didn't really do much, right? So it was basically an overview of the learning path we'll go through in the next 12 or so weeks. That's the plan anyway. And I think we left off with assignment where we had to set up our machines with the tools that we need. Basically, VS Code. That's quite important. Jupyter notebooks. A little bit of some. I think some of the people on the call didn't have experience with the Jupyter notebook, and I think that's essential for us to be able to, I guess, do our experiments quickly. It's yeah. Good evening, everyone. I can see that a few familiar faces. It's good to see you, Rinesh. How are you? So yeah, I've just started. So we mentioned about the Python. Everything that we do here is Python, right? So and as I mentioned before, this is not a beginner's course. So I expect people, I expect you guys to, maybe if you don't have a little experience with Jupyter notebooks and Python and Git, maybe try and learn in your own time. The sessions that we have is just 30 minutes. That's not really enough, right? So I hope to be able to, like, if you have questions, answer the questions in the session, or if not, if that's not enough, I'm happy to answer questions in the Discord channel as well. Okay, yeah, let's just start with I'll share my screen so that we can go. We only have half an hour. I've got a timer right in front of me, so just to remind myself. Also, Engramar, can you please, if there's any questions I might not be able to see, let me know so that I can answer them. Yeah, any time, please interrupt me. It's better if you have questions and something's not clear to have it clarified right now rather than later, because it's yeah, I think that's important learning. Okay, sure. This a lot of time. So you can see my screen now? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so as a review, this is basically our learning path, and we're in the second module. Like anything, when you're learning, we start with the basics, right? I put a lot of content here, but there's maybe only a couple of things that I really wanted to impart. In the time that we have today. Everyone knows generative AI, right? It's the in thing today, and everyone knows ChatGPT, OpenAI, towards the end of 2022, November, released ChatGPT, and shortly after, they released an API called Chat Completions API. This one here. So basically, little bit of, I guess, convention. We'll just call the thing in the middle here is the generator, is basically our LLM, right? So I basically just stole these pictures straight from Llama Index, and they have a convention that later on we'll see. But the LLM they call generator, and of course our question, and then the answer that the LLM returns back to us. For this session, It's really just we'll try and use Python to talk to our LLM. Um, you might it is quite basic, but we basically need to start with the basics. Next session we'll continue and set up our vector DB with Postgres. So yeah, and then a little bit advanced after that one. So back to chat completions API. So I can click that. So it's basically an open AI interface, right? So that means programmers would be able to talk to their chat GPT instances using Python, right? So and there's it's we'll have a look at it later. And why do I have to mention chat completions? It's quite important because once OpenAI released the completion API, it opened up everyone to be able to talk to their chat GPT, right, and build applications based on that. You definitely, I'm sure you've seen how ChatGPT looks like. I use it every day. Not just that, Bedrock um, and GitHub Copilot as well got similar interfaces. I think my voice is breaking. I have a bit of a cold, but apologies for that. So with the chat completions API, it opened up the generative AI to a lot of people, a lot of developers. But there was actually a requirement to be able to run your there are requirements in generative AI to be able to have privacy and have more control on the generative AI models you're talking to. There's a few tools was made available to us. One is called LM Studio, which we'll be covering a little bit today. And also another one called is another popular one called Olama. This is also something that yes. This question is if you have a Mac Intel, I think one of the people who went through the course of this study group tried installing LM Studio on their Mac Apple Silicon, and that didn't work for some reason. But I do know that Olama works with Mac Intel, and he was able to install it successfully. So if you have any issues with LM Studio um, on your Mac, Intel Mac, then try that. Another option, we're discussing, right, like the local LLMs using these tools. You don't have to use the local tools, but I do suggest that you do. Like if you have a good machine that can have these tools installed, then I suggest to do that. One thing for sure, it's less expensive, right? Because everything is in your local machine. But that's the thing. It's gonna be quite slow if your machine is not that good. So LM Studio comes in two flavors. When you install it, it comes with a desktop application. I use it all the time. And then recently, I think in the last couple of months, they also released a CLI version. And the CLI version gets installed automatically as part of the desktop application. And if you're not, I didn't know about that until I saw a YouTube video about it, and I thought, you know what, I really like to use LM Studio from the command line. That way, you could add it as part of your scripts as well. That's what Olama looks like.
Quick one, Jo. I think
Yes.
it's a question from Eric. Looks like he's planning, getting a MacBook to run Olama. Any minimum specs, perhaps?
I think any Apple Silicon MacBook would be good, but I think you might need at least 32 gigs of RAM. So if you have that, then I do know for sure that that works with that, and I still see some delay on my MacBook Pro. I have got MacBook Pro M2, 32 gigs. It's acceptable. Of course, the cloud LLMs are much lesser latency, and but then of course I have to pay for them as well. However, if you have maybe through your university or through your employer, I guess if you have access to it, then yeah, use it, right? So you don't have to use the local one. Myself and and Gramar here, we have an interest in trying to run it with the local um, LLMs, because one thing you kind of I feel like I learn more if it's on my local machine. I can do whatever I want with it and try all the different LLMs as well.
Yeah, I guess just to add on that, Jo, the reason why I would like to also explore any local implementation of LLM is really for the purpose also of supporting nonprofits, and we don't want typically, majority of their documents and artifacts are sensitive or contain sensitive information. So we want everything to be local in case we will support them in the future as Code.Sydney. So yeah, that's the reason why I'm really eager to really explore how really to implement it locally. Another thing, if you don't mind, Jo, with respect to LM Studio, sorry for this, but I haven't really read upfront what it is. Do you classify it like an ID or like a VS Code? What is it in terms of category? The LM Studio software itself.
Yeah, LM Studio is basically allows you to host your local LLMs in your local machine, basically, right?
Oh,
So
so it's a totally
yeah, imagine when when in the past, but I think people are still doing it now. And videos we download with using torrents, right? And we watch it on our laptops at home. Um, LM Studio allows you to download the LLMs on your local machine and run it, right? Once you run it, you have the capability of running a local server, right? So you can say, hey, HTTPS LM Studio, and then port 1234. Then you can basically hit that with your Python code, right? And now you've got access to your LLMs, right?
Yeah, I
So
see. Sort of like a mini server for LLMs.
exactly, yeah,
I
exactly.
I see. Thanks.
And the convenience of LM Studio, that's a desktop version. If you haven't seen it before, I'll quickly run through the tabs for you. This is kind of how it looks like, right? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 main tabs. Search is where you basically find the, I guess, language model that you want to install on your machine. Maybe I need to step back a little bit, because we can only download open language models, sorry, open source language models, right? So we can't download something like an open AI GPT. That's closed source. We don't have access to that at all. However, things like Mistral and Meta's Llama models, those are available. But there's a caveat though. For example, right? So Llama 3, the main model that's hosted in Meta, that's or any of the large language models hosted in the web are huge, right? So they're probably like 20, 30 gigs, and when it cannot run in your local machine, right? So what they did, they have this process called quantization, right? So it's basically something like in file system, it's something like a zipping, you're compressing it, right? So typically we have um, you know for example in Llama large language models. There's the main model, and there's a 70 um, uh, 70 billion parameters, which we call 70B. And then there's 8B parameters, or 8 billion parameters, right? So the number there, don't worry about it. The smaller the number, the smaller the large language model, right? But that means the smaller the number, the less powerful it is. So in short, what I suggest to you guys is to deploy the biggest that your machine can tolerate, right? So I'll show you how I download. So for example, I want to maybe download, yesterday they released Llama 3.1, right? So what you typically do is just type the model that you want, Llama, say 3.1, and then it comes back with all these. So what I usually do is sort it with either the most likes or the most downloads. I probably, let's do most likes. It's kind of like, buying in Amazon, right? The first thing I do is look at the reviews. The most reviews, that's what I buy, right? So same here. But what I did download before, and what I usually do is, I don't know any of these people, but this one looks trustworthy, right? So it comes from LM Studio community, right? So I've downloaded a few models from them before. So maybe you'll do that. 3.1, imagine, it was just released yesterday, then you can actually download it in your machine and actually run it, right? So when you click on that one, now you got more options to download. You remember I mentioned quantization. Quantization comes in different flavors, right? The highest quantization that they can do is 8. See this green pill? Just hover on that one. That's 8-bit quantization, right? So that's the highest quantization that they can do for this one. It's the most powerful 8 billion Llama 3.1. However, it's also the biggest, right? So 8.54 gigabytes for that one. It takes a while to download. I'm able to download that. I've got lots of space, but then you got less space for other things, right? So I usually look for the quantized 4 version, any of these, Q4, 4-bit quantized.
You consider it a sweet spot for Q? Is that the quantization for, is that the sweet spot?
I think so. It's kind of like in the middle, right? So like Goldilocks, right? Not the father, not the daughter, but the one in the middle. So I usually get the Q4. And with experimentation, honestly, I didn't really see a much difference with.
Can I ask a quick question, Jo? I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, please do.
Because you said this is sort of like a compressed version of the LLM. So this 4 gig here, are you saying that it's pretty much has got all the data or just the parameters? How does
Yeah,
it?
everything's there, right? So
Oh,
it's just less accurate, right? Less accurate version, because in theory, what they doing, in computer terms, right? Normally each I guess item is 32 bytes, right?
mhm.
But because they compressed it, now it's 4-bit, right? So that means the data is still there, but it's less accurate, right? So I can't explain it better more than that. But what I know is, you get a smaller model. That
Mhm.
that means it's more friendly to run even if you don't have a GPU, right? So
I
um,
see. It's really
yeah,
interesting because I remember the concept of downloadable internet or downloaded internet that is being delivered to outskirts. I believe some countries which does not have access to internet. So I guess this is sort of similar, right? As long as you
yes,
can download it, you can
one,
ask any question.
exactly.
Like a
Once you
Wikipedia.
download it, yeah, and it's basically that its memory is frozen from when it was trained, right? And in case of Llama 3.1, when was it trained? I think maybe a week ago, or a couple weeks
That's
ago, right?
the
Yeah,
snapshot. That's the snapshot. That's the last.
yeah, snapshot
Oh,
exactly.
wow. Okay, that's huge.
Mm.
So what you're saying it's pretty much the entire knowledge, compressed into this small file
Yeah,
size.
essentially, I can't guarantee what it can and what it can't
But
answer, right?
it's
But
awesome. It's awesome.
but
Thanks.
this Llama 3.1, it is basically the same Llama 3.1 that's released in Meta, just quantized in a smaller format. But yeah, I mean, play with it. You'll be surprised. And of course, I'm just showing you here LM Studio. Um, Olama, I mentioned, doesn't have a pretty user interface. It's all CLI. So similar concepts still, right? You still can download whatever model or whatever models available for you. Still, you have different versions of quantized versions of LLMs you can download. You still have options which one you want to download. You still have options to download and run it on your local machine in a particular port, same as LM Studio, right? So that one, and also LM Studio is also available as a CLI, right? So if you have installed LM Studio, um, you can actually just run it on your terminal, type LMS like I did here, and then you'll see the commands made available for you. If you used Docker before, some of these commands look familiar, the ls, the ps, all those things, right? So it will allow you to, I guess, download um, an LLM locally. It will allow you to load them so that you don't have to do that from LM Studio, the desktop application. So whatever you do here in CLI, it's going to be updated with the desktop. Whatever you do in the desktop will also be updated here. Believe there's a question.
Yeah, yeah. From Jin Bin, is it possible to get a pre-trained Llama model from the LM Studio to retrain with new data?
Honestly, I don't know a lot of details about retraining, but yes, you can retrain. From what I understand, you can fine tune not LM Studio, Llama 3.1. But yeah, maybe that's another in a study group later on.
Thanks for the question.
Okay, I know I only have 10 minutes, so I want to just go through this quickly, and then I open for questions if you have. But we already talked about this, online versus local. Why would you? Okay, if you have any issues with local LLM, I suggest to just find an online LLM. Just pay for it, right? It's not gonna be, if you're studying, pay for it for maybe a couple months or whatever. It's if you're in Australia, that's tax deductible anyway. And if not, you've got access. If you've got access to your employer's one, then you just use that, like I do. LM Studio. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I mentioned OpenAI chat completion API, right? So that's the very first API that came that allowed developers to talk to their LLM. And then when these tools came through, like LM Studio and Olama, especially LM Studio. I can't speak with Olama that much because I haven't used it. I know that LM Studio, you know how OpenAI, the chat completions API, is only for OpenAI, right? Now, because because the chat completion API is quite popular, so many developers have already used that, millions, right? So what LM Studio did is, for any of the large language models that you can download locally, you can actually talk to it through LM Studio using the chat completion API. What does that mean, right? So I'm not sure if you know how great that is, because that means for people who have built applications against OpenAI, right? So they have applications with OpenAI, they can, without changing their code, right, still using the OpenAI chat completions API, they can point it to LM Studio and talk to their local machine. So that means, if they want to stop their subscription to ChatGPT, they can, because now we can talk to LM Studio using the same API, right? In addition to that, there's also a couple of libraries worth mentioning that are really good in terms of talking to your Gen AI application, so LLMs, and this is LangChain and Llama Index. For the remainder of this study group, we'll be using Llama Index, but don't let that stop you from using LangChain instead, right? So I use Llama Index because it makes I like to be able to. It's quite I like to be able to build RAG applications without, not, I wouldn't say without limitation, but with less limitations, I can basically build almost anything I like. So yeah, I think that's it basically for the module 2. I do have a couple of assignments for you. The first one is, these are very simple, right? So this is making sure that your VS Code, your local dev environment's working, right? So very simple. Just create your first exercise in the My Notebooks folder. You would have seen in the module 2, or each module, we have a My Notebooks folder, and I do have an empty notebook there. So just make sure that you can load, you can run this exercises. And what did I say here? Okay. Find a local model that you like, right? Download it. It doesn't have to be exactly the one I downloaded. Download it. Wait for 4 GB. I know how long that would take you. Download it and see if you can talk to it. We do have examples here on how to talk to it using the chat completions API. Very short code, and so I'm and Grammar, you talking about how to talk to the local LLM. And this is basically me saying, because I've already set up my LM Studio to run locally on port 1234, right? So the server's running using that, MetaLlama 3.1 large language model. And you don't have to specify an API key. That's for if you're using LM Studio. Of course, it's free, and it just needs LM Studio there. This form, client chat completions create. That's basically OpenAI. See, we're using OpenAI library here, even though we're not using OpenAI ChatGPT, right? So that means we can cheat basically using OpenAI's library, talking to another LLM. So that's kind of the beauty of
It's
LM
like a
Studio.
backdoor entry to AI, OpenAI. Is
Yeah.
that 4.0 or
Sorry.
is that 4.0? Is that correct? Or is totally unrelated to what I'm
Sorry.
asking?
What's your question?
No, I mean, I'm just wondering. You said that it's sort of like a backdoor to OpenAI.
No. It's not a backdoor, right? What I'm trying to say is we are using the OpenAI API, just the API to
Okay,
talk to our local language model, right? So
I
we're
see.
using the API, OpenAI's API, to talk to our Llama 3.1 local, right?
Okay,
In reality, Llama 3.1 doesn't understand the OpenAI API, right? But because LM Studio supports OpenAI API, we can talk to our local large language model using that OpenAI's API, if that makes sense.
I think it
And
will
then
make sense once. we start working on it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it makes a
I
lot of
think that,
sense now, but
that's the
once you
thing that
actually work on it, it will make
we can do.
yeah. And then finally, sorry, 2 minutes. I have an example of how you can talk to your local LLM using using Llama Index, right? So Llama Index has a connector to LM Studio, and you just say you need to specify the model name and the same I guess HTTP local server, right? So kind of similar to how we did talk to our local LLM using this API, OpenAI API. So here, we've got a second option, right? So we can talk to our local LLM using this using Llama Index. And yeah, play with it. And yeah.
Like we got a question, sorry, from Tony.
Yes, please.
When loading an LLM model, how to choose the parameter for example identifier. That's what he wrote there.
Okay, so I'm talking about the model name and stuff. So
Joe, I just checked the document for the LM Studio. They loaded a LM model. They have a dash identifier. So I'm just wondering how can we get this information, or maybe it's not needed for instance, for Llama 3.
I'm not quite sure if I understand the question, Tony.
If you in the LM Studio for the tool, for the CLI tool.
Yeah, I'll CLI tool, right? Okay.
CLI tool.
Okay, hold on. So the CLI tool, haven't. Sorry.
So basically, use a LMS CLI to load a LMM module.
Yeah.
You can specify the identifier.
Okay. So I do it like this, Tony. So I said LMS, right? And this is instructions here, but you can say LMS and LS to list what you have, and that's the identifier. You just copy that one, and that's your identifier there. So you just copy the identifier you have loaded, right? So that's your identifier. If you look at the code, then you'll see that that's exactly what we did at the top there.
This is what I got from the CLI page from the LMS. It just has a dash identifier equals something.
Yeah, not sure about that.
Maybe we can have a look, and then we'll discuss. Tony, if you're in Discord, we can discuss.
Yeah, let's pick it up in Discord. I'd like to answer whatever questions you have there, and then if I don't have the answer, then I'll just Google or chat GPT.
Yeah, thanks for
yeah, cool. I think that's all the time we have for today. Thanks everyone for. Do you have any words, Nkrumah?
Oh no, just it's really very. I really like this one. This topic. It's pretty much, I guess, the gate to more things to explore around.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Geo, for the time, and thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you next week.
See you in Discord.
Don't forget to do your assignments. See you later. Bye-bye.